all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and together with my wonderful co-hosts, we review movies, either current or classic, on this show. And this week, we're going to be coming at you with not one, but two current films, those being Ghostbusters Afterlife and Encanto. We got a lot to talk about on the episode, two big movies to discuss. But before we jump in, let me introduce you to those fabulous co-hosts I mentioned. Jim Pugliafico is with us here in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Dealing with some nagging stuff, but otherwise it's not so bad. Tech stuff, health stuff, nothing serious, but just stuff in general. Jumping back into the work week after a nice holiday break. That's always fun. But yeah, I'm here and I'm ready to talk movies with you guys, and I can't wait.
All right, excellent. Well, we are so glad that you are here and battling through everything that's going on to be with us this week. I'm battling a cold myself, so if I sound a little stuffy, folks, that's why. Yep. So much fun. But we've also got Will Lindis in the studio with us. Of course, that being virtually. We're unfortunately not together physically right now. Maybe that will change at some point. Fingers crossed. But Will, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I mean, actually, compared to, it sounds like the two of you who are both, some degree of under the weather, I'm doing very well. This is the time of the year when we start the movie ramp up as we hit the sort of the prestige films start coming out, and everything is just, there's so many films to catch up on. So I'm good. I've got a film scheduled for either watching at home or in the theaters every night this week, or this. Like, this was like the one night off for movies, but this is still movies. So I'm glad I'm kind of getting back into that stride.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of great films, coming out in advance, of the Oscars. So we'll have to see what we get with those. But we've got two big movies we're going to talk about on this week's episode of the Movie Bears podcast. Whether either one will be up for Oscar contention, I don't know. But, maybe. Could be a thing. We're going to talk about these films a little bit different. And babe, we had some tech issues, so you missed this part of the conversation when you joined. Feel free to edit this out if you want. But we're going to do this a little bit differently than we normally do. Rather than jump in and do a full intro, because these movies have been out for a while and a lot of folks have had a chance to see them, we're just going to dive right into spoilers for these films and just kind of have a round robin discussion about what we thought, whether these films tripped our triggers.
Wait, we're going to talk about whether there's ghosts in the Ghostbusters movie or not?
How about
right
that?
Off the bat?
What, Jim? What?
I know some people are going to be really
Oh god. The comments I can see.
I know. But if you have yet to see Ghostbusters Afterlife or Encanto, just be aware we are going to jump in full force with spoilers from the get-go. So there is your official MBP spoiler warning for these films. Let's go ahead and get things started. Jim, Will, are you ready to talk some Ghostbusters?
Yeah. I think you called the right people.
Yeah. Call me anytime.
All right. Then here we go. Our discussion of Ghostbusters Afterlife. All right. As we mentioned, we're going to jump right into spoilers with these and really get right into the meat of things. Did you guys like this movie? First things first. I mean, it's been forever and a day since we've had an original continuity Ghostbusters movie. And I think it's fair to say, spoilers are fair game. This certainly counts as a sequel, right, to Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Did it trip your triggers?
I'll say for me, I'll pull off the Band-Aid, and I know that this is one of those films that I know that people have a lot of I don't know, personal feelings tied up in, right? Like a lot of people, like, and I'm not saying like like a toxic way, more like I know there's a lot of people who really need this film to be good because it's such an important part of their childhood. And if that is you, and if you absolutely enjoyed this film, please, any of the faults I'm about to bring up, Please do not let those diminish your joy of the film. It's fine. It's an okay movie that I think has some really, really interesting setup and I think some interesting ideas, but really loses itself and loses its characters when it decides to just sort of play the greatest hits to bring out the nostalgia bait, which is fine. Nostalgia is good, but I like it when it passes the torch as opposed to just sort of feels like a set dressing to see the originals just doing stuff all over again. I don't know. The last third of this movie really sank the other two parts of it for me. Didn't hate it. There's good stuff in here, but I did not love this movie.
Okay. So I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, right?
Yeah,
So
there's good stuff. There's good stuff. If you like kind of like the Stranger Things, sort of like kids doing a coming of age story stuff, yeah, I mean, there's something to enjoy that. If you need to see more Ghostbusters on the screen, or if you're the type of person who sort of like wells up with tears when you are reminded of something that brought you joy as a child, which is a lot of us, there are definitely some things in this movie that will appeal to you. But just the thing that I didn't like as much, there is a set of characters that sort of get the focus of the first parts of the movie, the kids themselves. And I feel like they sort of lose their agency towards the end of the movie as they just sort of get swallowed up by, hey, don't forget about the adult Ghostbusters. And that's the part that really hurt me.
What you're saying is the olds rule, right? The olds take over.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. If you go on to sum it up to one thing, it's like down with boomers. I don't know. No, please don't flip that. Please don't flip that. No, don't flip that.
Oh goodness. Well, Jim, how about for you? Did you enjoy this movie more or less than Will did?
Yeah, and I think I enjoyed it maybe a little bit more than Will, actually, which surprises me because I am not. I don't have a stake in the original Ghostbusters. Do I know about the property? Have I seen the movies? Yes. Even that 2016 movie that came out, I think we talked about it on the show. And I didn't. Maybe it was a 2016 movie that kind of soured me like on the whole Ghostbusters thing because it just wasn't. I don't think any of us really liked that movie very much. Well, I don't know. But anyway, I was surprised how much I like this movie. I agree with some of what Will said, though. I think in the third act, it does turn into kind of a nostalgia porn a little bit. To try to get its emotional element out, it kind of leans on the nostalgia from the original cast and the original movie a little bit too strongly for me. I think you can do that, and I think you can do it in a more tasteful way where it doesn't rob this movie from its own, we'll use this, its own agency, right? Like its own identity. I thought the cast in this movie, the new cast that's in this movie, I thought did a fine job. I love Carrie Coon, by the way. She plays the mom in this. She's great in just about everything I've seen her in. Of course, Paul Rudd is really good. It's kind of a toned down version of, kind of the characters that Paul Rudd plays. And I appreciated that. And even the kids, I kind of, I'm not a huge Stranger Things fan, but I kind of like the way the kids were in this movie with maybe one exception. There was kind of a goofy character in here called Podcast. I think.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Who likes? I mean, really,
and I had flashbacks to the King Kong movie where they had a whole character that played a podcast guy. Like I think this is a thing now, right? You got to have something in somebody in your movie who's a podcaster.
We are very anti-podcast on this show, by the way.
Yeah, we are we're the anti-podcast.
I tell you what, it made me flash back to when we first started the podcast and we were telling friends about the show. And I was like, God, I hope I was not as like annoying as that little fuck nugget.
I mean, we have a podcast. There's like a certain degree of it that we are, but like not to the degree that this kid is.
Yeah, I mean, the poor kid, I mean, he's put in that role and, to him, it probably sounds like a great role to get some exposure. But he's like, I mean, he's just goofing it up the whole time. And I don't think anybody really takes him seriously. But really, overall, I did like this movie. I was pleasantly surprised how much I liked it. The ending did not ruin the whole movie for me. It was just one of these, yeah, we know what's coming. Here it comes. Here comes the flashback to a character that's no longer with us, and now we're going to cry part of the movie. But like I said, the rest of it I thought was pretty good. I thought the movie was shot well. I thought it looked great. And like I said, the cast did a good job. So I think I'm more positive than Will, although I do agree with some of the points he made about kind of toward the end of the movie.
All right. Awesome. I'm trying to figure out where I come down compared to the rest of you guys. I thought the movie
on
was
top of us, hopefully.
I mean, okay.
Okay. Wow. All right. All right. Good night, everyone. That's the show.
I thought the movie was fine, I guess. I liked probably the first half of this movie with kind of its setup, kind of the mystery that it unspools. Why did Egon leave this equipment behind? What was he doing? What got him killed? That whole mystery, I think, was good for me. I don't think the kids were particularly annoying, which is always a good sign. But I also don't think they brought a whole, I don't know. I guess I was expecting like new generation of Ghostbusters. Yeah, man. And what I got was like, oh, the kids like uncover the equipment and cause hell with it and get in trouble, and now the real Ghostbusters have to come in. And that was a little bit disappointing. Not that I expect, a 12-year-old girl and a 16-year-old, to be the new Ghostbusters. That's probably a little unrealistic.
Don't forget podcast.
Well, I did forget podcast.
Yeah,
but whatever.
12-year-old boy. Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I was just hoping that, kind of like what you were saying, Will, they would have a bit more to bring to the table. Right. Especially toward the end of the film where like all havoc breaks loose. By the way, not a fan of revisiting the Zool well. It's I think it's a missed opportunity for this film not to have done something different and new with the villain. I mean, we got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man again, although this time he's not 30 stories tall. There's just a million of him, little itty bitty ones. Yeah, Will's got something to hold up. That's awesome. So podcast has hijinks trying to smash the little Stay Puft men. Okay. That didn't work very well for me. And then it's it's one of those things where, because we return to the Zool well, the mom character and the Paul Rudd character obviously have to become the new demon dogs, right? The gatekeeper and the keymaster. And so the minute you hear the word Zool, you know that that's exactly what's going to happen. And so everything kind of unfolds to plan. And, by the end, Mom and Paul Rudd aren't going to be possessed anymore. The Ghostbusters are going to show up. When they do show up, it is a nice moment. I do feel like they tugged on my heartstrings a little too much with CGI Harold Ramis. But I mean, I don't know. It was a nice moment, but I don't know. Overall, the movie was just a little for me.
I think that, yeah, and I think that there's so many things that you could have just like slightly tweaked to make this stronger, right? Like, I think you still want to have like the Ghostbusters, like the original Ghostbusters show up at the end, because that's what you're going for. You want that moment of like everyone lined up. You want, CGI Ghost Harold Ramis. You want to have that moment because it does like evoke a certain thing in the audience, especially audience of a specific age. What I kind of wish had happened a little bit more of there is that they weren't the ones to stop Zool there. Maybe they did something there, and then the new, like Phoebe, I think was a very interesting character up until that point, right? Like she is the grandchild of Egon, and she's smart, and she's trying to uncover all of these things. And kind of all she does is get to stand there. She gets to stand there with the others, but it's really Ghost Ramos that's there as well. I really wish that, we had gotten to see an actual passing of the torch there, and like, again, I don't need the kids like kicking ass and taking names, but something that showed that it was, them, like, like they didn't know what to do with podcast. Who I think the kid actor, I think he did a good job with the role he was playing, and they were basically trying to give him sort of like that kind of goofy Dan Aykroyd-ish role, but kid version of it. And so because of that, you need to have him covered in marshmallows at the end, and that's why he's doing. I get why they did all of that stuff, but in a lot of ways, he was very superfluous to that final section at all, except for to have marshmallows on him, sort of in a ham-fisted way. You could just tweak this a little bit. You could tweak this just a little bit. Let the Ghostbusters show up a little bit earlier. Try a plan that doesn't work, and then the kids figure out a way to make that plan work so that they get to take the torch and move it forward. Same with the Zool thing, if you want to bring back kind of like your biggest hit villain, but you still want to keep things fresh, maybe you do uncover like the ruins of Zool or whatever happens in this one, right? But maybe very early on, the demon dogs things happen. Phoebe goes like does some like research, like, Scooby ganging it, figures out what's happening. They stop that like at the end of the second act, and then Zool's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to try something even more fantastical, and then goes to do it and does something new to sort of drive the plot in a new direction. You can still do old, you can still do nostalgia, but what you do is you subvert what happens in nostalgia so that you can build something new off of it. And I think that's the missed opportunity here.
I would like to circle back and to the words Zoolwell. Is that, babe, did you coin that term on this show, or is that canon? What's going on?
I mean, that was me. I don't think it was actually called the Zool Well. But
so
maybe it should have been.
I mean, it was kind of a well.
We're talking about the physical place that's like a well with Zool right in it.
I guess it can have a double meaning. Yeah. I was talking about retreading the past to make more money. But that works
back to that well again. Yeah.
Oh,
funny. I did like the look of this film quite a bit. There's something sort of in a good way, Instagram filtery about the way that it's shot and captured on screen. You see that a lot, like especially when there's shots of like the car going and there's like wheat in the background. Even the marketing materials sort of lean into that sort of pastoral look. And that evokes nostalgia, right? That's why we have those sepia filters or like, like low light filters like that on Instagram or any of the different apps we do. It's because we want to add that tinge to our own lives. And that's what this film is all about. I think it looked the way it needed to look. I do think that some of the reveals of the equipment were kind of neat. Like, it was nice seeing like the one thing I really enjoyed was the field full of all of the little traps. I thought that was a cool touch. Seeing the backpacks on the team, and even the kid team, like that was all really cool. And the use of the metal eating ghost, sort of like to get through an obstacle. That was really cool. But there was so much reverence placed on every scene that was something that was placed on the old movies. It reminded me a lot of Solo, which also had similar issues with, in that it got so far trapped in its own nostalgia. Well, it got so far trapped kind of in its own lore that it wasn't focused as much on telling a new story as much as just showing us like its cool collection of trading cards of things that it had from the past and hoping that was enough.
Yeah, like I said, I did. I'm sorry. Go ahead, babe.
No, go ahead.
I did like the stuff that was kind of the new stuff that wasn't retread. Like I said, that was a surprise to me how well I liked it, and I'm like, oh, I could get into this. This is a cool like reboot of this franchise. This is going to be great. But then, like you said, they did go back to the well a little too deep. Not the Zool well, but the nostalgia well, right? And I think that kind of dampened my excitement for more Ghostbusters movies.
There is no Dana, only nostalgia.
Will, you mentioned the equipment reveals. I agree. That definitely was cool to kind of slowly parse that out. First we had the trap, then we had a proton pack, then we see the other proton packs in the Zool well. I'm just going to call it that from now on. Sort of keeping Zool at bay every day, right? But I actually got a little bit confused because I thought when Phoebe was talking to Ray, I thought Ray had said that Egon disappeared with all of their equipment, that he took everything. So how did the Ghostbusters have proton packs when they showed up at the end? I didn't get it. I'm like, did they go to the Zool well and collect
I
proton packs?
I thought he disappeared with it because he brought it back to this farm and hid it in the basement, right?
Yeah, but the new, to Brad's point, the new the old Ghostbusters, they didn't show up and then go okay, there's a ghost over there. Let's go into the basement real quick with the foot. They showed up standing there with photon packs. I think, Brad, there were some scenes that got every movie is heavily edited. That's just that's what films are. Their film is a collection of hours and hours of footage, edited down to story. So when I say that this movie is heavily edited, I mean that there were some spots where it really felt like something was abruptly cut or left out of the film, and I think that there might have been something there. Because you're right, they did mention they got away with all of our equipment, and I think they were trying. What they meant was all of the traps, which explains why there's the field of traps. But I took it the same way. Why are the photon packs missing? There was one cut that was really, really abrupt, and I really want to know if there was another major character that got just completely cut out of the film. There's a scene where that's the other kids that are in this movie, the ones that are sort of the locals, they kind of tease the kid at the diner and all of that, and then they go off with him to the Zool whale. There's a spot where they're in the diner after all of that happens, and they're doing sort of their Scooby Gang stuff. They're looking at the books and the maps, and just looking they're looking at shit and just saying okay, this is what I think's happening. And in the background, all of these other teenagers start turning and looking at them and walking towards them and surround their table. And then it cuts, and then we just go on to another scene. And I'm well, what was happening there? Were all the other kids coming to bully them? Were all the other kids coming to join them? What happened there? Because there was obviously more to that scene that that they could not cut around. And I'm really interested in knowing what that was.
Yeah, I do remember that scene too, and that was a good pickup, Will. I don't know. Maybe I was already thinking that scene has gone on too long or something. I don't know. But we have our friend from movie Mistrial joining us. Did you see this?
Hey.
I'm going to read his comment here. One thought he had: the production design of the original movie is so iconic that it hits you right in the feels. Made me wonder if current IPs, other IPs, will have the same longevity 20 years from now. I'm trying to think of other IPs that have a different aesthetic than this. The aesthetic that's used in this movie, though, is used in a lot of other. This aesthetic is fairly common. I mean, you see this kind of small town. You remember Super 8 was kind of a similar kind of aesthetic. And this aesthetic has been picked up by other IPs as well. I'm trying to think of other IPs that are current that have a unique aesthetic that we think might have some longevity. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I'm just trying to think what current IPs that aren't, based in, 30-year-old IP that have an aesthetic.
Yeah, so when you're talking production design, there's a few different things that you can look at. You can talk about the actual, like, the look and the feel of the equipment and the sets. Is everything like, is are the props like, are they shiny and glossy? Are they textured,
Dusty and
or are they
old and
dirty and dusty? Like,
weathered. Yeah.
And you get into set design a little bit as part of this, and kind of how those things reflect. One that I think you could probably make a case for, this one might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think they're really starting to build an aesthetic out of the whole, like, posh Kingsman style vibes. Like, I don't know that it's as iconic, but I do think that it's one of those things where you definitely feel that through line. And of course, something like a little more recent, but still a little older, like the Harry Potter movies, had a very specific look and feel to them. When you think about the way the Nimbus looked, or the Golden Snitch, or the way Hogwarts as a whole looked, like the moody, everything angular and stuff like that, I think that you could make a new movie. Well, I guess they have, and just sort of plop those types of things in there, and you would instantly recognize yourself as being in the wizarding world of Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to this franchise's credit, the aesthetic in here, like the design of the props and stuff, have migrated out even to other properties. Like, think about Stranger Things, right? They dress up as Ghostbusters, right? They have fake proton packs on, and so the aesthetic and prop design in this movie has impacted current day stuff. So that's a testament to kind of the strength of what the original movies have laid down in this one.
I do think that, to the point that we're making here about, like, specific items that are become part of lore. Like, there's a comment here about Thanos's glove, like in Brad's background. And I do think that you can look at a lot of the superhero stuff that's happening right now. Captain America's shield, a batarang, things along those, like Thor's hammer. You can see those as very specific to right now, that I think, to that same point, 30 years from now, if you're watching a superhero movie about, like, I don't know, just a bunch of random characters, and then you just see, like, that shield appear, I think you'd have the same reaction from people who are like young now, just like, oh god, yes, it's happening. So that is kind of cool. Like, these objects become like, yeah, it's fantasy. These are all fantasy movies in different ways, but they evoke this, like, childhood wonder. Like, they're friends that we played with as kids, and it's fun to see them come back when we're adults and the world is shitty and we're in a pandemic and everything's scary and I have taxes and I have to pay my fucking bills, and then all of a sudden I get to escape for a couple of hours and enjoy something that made me smile as a kid and can make me smile now. Like, I do like that aspect of these things.
One thing I want to bring up is just the sound editing for this movie. I do think was really exceptional, especially when, like, charging up the proton packs and, like, feeling the thrum in the air,
Yes.
And the whine, and then, like, they would fire the proton stream, and, like, it felt like it was moving through your body. It was like a wall of sound. It was really impressive how they did that.
Yeah, especially in the theater we were in. We were in one of the fake IMAX movie theaters again, and the sound system in there is really good. And man, when those blasts went off from the proton packs, like, you felt it, like it was, this, like, whoa, I don't remember this from any of the other movies. And I don't know if that's an advancement in technology or it's just that they put more focus into making it, making it sound better. Maybe both, probably both. But yeah, babe, I definitely agree with that. Like, the sound here was, at least the sound effects, were great. Yeah.
Well, what else grabbed your attention in this film that's worthy of discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Will.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting, maybe not in a great way, but sort of in an indicative way. The end of the movie, like every movie sort of has, like, not every movie, but every movie of a certain genre has a stinger scene now that sort of like puts a capstone on something and maybe hints at something to come ahead, you know? And this movie chose to use it to show Ernie Hudson doing some stuff, and then to do a bit of a side scene with, do we want to spoil that? I guess we're in
Yeah,
spoilers.
I might as well.
Yeah,
People have seen it.
we get to see Dana again, and just for like a little like side scene, kind of the post credit scene, and those are cool. You know, it was fun seeing the characters pop up, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, I would have loved to have seen like these post credit scenes again. I guess I'm banging that same drum again. Feature the kids, you know. Can you imagine a post-credit scene that was instead of again, nothing against the Ernie Hudson one. I think he gets very underutilized. Winston gets very underutilized a lot of times. It was really nice seeing kind of what he's become. But imagine a stinger that just shows like Phoebe going down, like, you know, just sort of like no dialogue. She just goes into the basement. And you see her like sitting down, like she's trying to work on something, and she puts out the photon pack, and then she starts making some improvements to it. And maybe that's the cut right there, showing like, oh, not only is she picking up the legacy, but she's going to add herself to it. Maybe there's another movie, maybe there's not, but either way, we know like the legacy of Ghostbusters is continuing. That could be super cool. And it's indicative of like that's not what this movie wanted to be. This movie really wanted to be a way of getting to that scene to bring the adults back without having the adults in an entire movie.
Yeah, it does leave me wondering though, like what the future really is, because you know the Ernie Hudson scene that we got with, by the way, Annie Potts, who is still magnificent. Great to see her show up again. He has brought Ecto 1 back to New York. He has bought the firehouse, right? The fire station, which I'm a little confused about because Ray said it was a Starbucks earlier in the film, but now it's a firehouse again. So I don't know how that works. But, you know, is Winston bringing the Ghostbusters back? Is he turning the firehouse into a museum? Fuck if I know. I don't. But I just wonder, like, if there is going to be another movie. I can't imagine there won't be another one. Is it going to be centered on the kids picking up the torch, you know, and moving along? So. Is it the old ones? I don't know.
I would hope so. Maybe it's the kids working under the guidance of Winston. You know what I mean? I think that would be kind of cool. Almost like a Charlie's Angels Ghostbusters kind of thing, where he's kind of he's not actively involved, but he's kind of like a counselor or guru, whatever you want to call it, where they, you know, he has the knowledge, right? He's, it seems like the Bill Murray character and Dan Aykroyd character maybe kind of fade off into the distance, and Ernie Hudson stays back and becomes like kind of the leader for the kids. But I definitely want to see it focused on the kids coming back. At least that's what I hope they do. Yeah. And I think with these movies, like when Sigourney Weaver shows up and, you know, Annie Potts shows up, it's kind of great. It's kind of like Easter eggy a little bit. And you kind of wonder if it's like, okay, well, we're bringing Bill Murray and you know, Ernie Hudson and everyone back. So I guess we got to bring Sigourney Weaver and Annie Potts back to, you know, have the whole gang here. We can't leave anybody out because the fans
except Rick Moranis.
Yeah,
no Rick Moranis.
Well, no Rick Moranis, but he's retired from acting so long ago. I'm sure. I'm positive they asked and
CGI that motherfucker, just like they did with yeah, CGI that motherfucker in there.
Okay. Just have like a single cell of him going like, I could not answer the phone right now. Bye.
Yeah.
At least we didn't get Chris Evans, or no, who was it? Who's the Thor guy?
Chris Evans.
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, at least we didn't get Chris Hemsworth. You know.
Yeah. No.
They're ignoring that property, right?
I wouldn't have minded it. I didn't say it earlier. If I had to pick between the two, I think I like the 2016 one better.
Really?
This, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. That's because, Will, you love what's her name? Who was in that one? Who was really good in it, but
Kate McKinnon.
Yeah, Kate McKinnon.
Yeah. No, I like the cast in that. Well, I guess not to get too far into the well. I feel like that one at least like wanted to tell its own story, and this one was so beholden to another story that I never got a chance to really see what this movie could be or wanted to be because it was so shackled. And that I think was the problem I had.
Yeah. These properties have to walk the line, though. They have to please the folks like us who want to maybe see something novel and something that's going to spin our minds a little bit, right? But then again, there's the folks that definitely do want that comfort. They want that kind of return to home base feeling. So it's a fine line to walk. I don't know if you're ever going to satisfy everybody.
Oh no,
probably not. But
right,
yeah, let's try. All right. Well, we have a whole nother movie to talk about on this week's episode. So, Jim, Will, how do you feel about switching gears a little bit and talking about Encanto?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that.
All right. Well, then, just like we did with Ghostbusters Afterlife, we're going to jump straight in with spoilers for Encanto. So if you have not yet seen the film and you value your innocence, then this is your time to step away. If you have seen the film or you don't care about spoilers, then hang on for the ride, because here we go, our discussion of Encanto. All right, so spoilers are totally open and fair game right from the get-go. Where do you guys want to start?
I'll start. I'll jump in on this one. I really wanted to love this movie more than I ended up loving it. It's a fine movie. It's not a bad movie. It's certainly lively. It's wonderfully colorful. It's like energy packed from beginning to end. For me, and I thought the voice acting was great. I loved some of the characters in here, but there are some issues I had with the movie. Number one is that there's music in this movie, which is fine. I love music, but unlike some other movies that feature music, I didn't walk out of the theater remembering or remembering the next day like any one of the songs by title or by melody or by lyric. I just didn't. And maybe that's because of my, it might be because of my taste. It just didn't like trip my trigger, and that's fine. Also, I thought the story here was really felt like flimsy and not well. It didn't like make a lot of. If you scratch the surface at all on this story, it's not really making sense. It doesn't have a strong central story. What we have here is a story of the Madrigal family. Is that what their name is? Yeah,
and the family Madrigal.
The family Madrigal, and specifically focused on the girl Mirabelle, who I thought the animation style and her voice acting was great. Everything in the movie is magical, right? The name of the movie is Encanto. They're all enchanted. So everything, the house, the mountains, the candles, and even some of most of the characters are somehow enchanted, or they have like a power. There's a lot of talk about visions and magic in this movie. It just all didn't come together for me in a kind of a really strong story, I guess. But like I said, I think, it's fine for a family to go and watch this movie. And I think there's probably a lot to enjoy. I think it might keep kids interested because there's a lot of little things going on, sight gags here and there. Like I said, some of the characters is cute animals and stuff like that. I just wish it had a bit of a stronger story. And the songs just not memorable. Just, they didn't work for me. So I don't know what you guys thought, but I want to hear it.
Yeah. So like Jim, I went into this one really wanting to love it, and I did. I know Brad, sometimes we use the litmus test of like, oh, I went out of this and immediately listened to the soundtrack on repeat. I went out of this one and immediately listened to the soundtrack on repeat. Like, like there's a couple of songs in here specifically that that really worked for me. There's a Surface Pressure, which is the one that the older sister Louisa, the strong one, sings, which is like, I think if there's something about, maybe it's just my specific age, like there's something about just like what it is to be specifically like an elder millennial in the year 2021, and just like the amount of stress and pressure you feel, that this song captures so incredibly well. It's like anthemic in a lot of ways. We've been singing We Don't Talk About Bruno around the house, and we've also been changing it to Silencio Bruno, like just because it's kind of interesting that Bruno's like popular this year in these Disney Pixar films. I love the characters. I love the animation. I felt like when I first watched this movie, I was like, oh my God, there's so many fucking characters in this. I don't know how I'm going to understand them. But that first song set up everybody, like, and that was the point of it, to show the family tree, but also to show the conflicts, to show who relates to what their gifts were, and sets the table so well that at the end of it, I'm like, I know this entire it's 5 minutes into this movie, and I know who all my characters are and what the table is set. I loved that. That was so good. All of the music I really loved. Stephanie Beatrice as Mirabelle is so good. I was not expecting that voice from her. I think of Stephanie Beatrice, I mean, she's Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She's like tough as nail, badass, and she plays this like kind of hopeful, sweet, but also like trying to figure out her place in the world girl. I loved also the other one that I thought was really, really good here was Diane Guerrero, who we know from Orange is the New Black and Doom Patrol, in the role as Isabella, the beautiful sister. I love the story on this too. From the trailers, I was expecting this to be like a journey movie, because you see some like adventure shots, and this is a journey movie. But I think that's so brilliant about it is it's a journey movie that is self-contained. All of the locations happen within the same house, within the same town, within the same valley. Yet you still get these memorable like set pieces. The weird caverns and the jungle, and things collapsing. It's so inventive how they did all of that, but the big thing for me was how they brought it all together at the end. This is a story that we kept thinking, kind of watching through this one, is this going to be a movie about her finding out what her special gift is? And I think there is something magical, pun intended, I suppose, about a story that's message is you're more than just what you can provide for other people. Your value isn't measured in what you do, in what your gift is. Your gift or whatever it is that you're good at and what you can provide is great, but it's not your worth. You have worth outside of those things. You have inherent worth, and you don't have to measure your worth against someone else. I loved that so much. So I was on the other side of the line on this one, Jim. Like I thought the story on this one was really nuanced and really strong, with the songs really pulling it together, and all of the characters had a chance to play their part to pull it together. Is this top tier Disney? I don't know about that, but is this like really, really solid Disney? I'd absolutely say yeah. This was like a slam dunk for me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it as much as you did. Well, for me, this was absolutely not a slam dunk. I mean, it was fine, but Jim, kind of to some of your points, the music did not grab me at all. I have this weird relationship with Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, I loved his music in Moana. To this day, I will put the Moana soundtrack on repeat and listen to it over and over and over again. But the songs just didn't jive with me here. And I don't know if we had an issue in our theater with the sound. I mean, the sound sounded fine. But I was having an issue that I sometimes have when I go to see Broadway plays that are musicals. And that is when multiple people are singing at the same time and it's overlaced and interlayered together. it's like a wall of sound that my brain like can't decipher. Like I stop being able to figure out like what the hell is actually going on. And I think all of Lin-Manuel Miranda's worst impulses when it comes to interlayering singing dialogue like that are on display here. And I think a lot of people like that about his music, and that's great. Some of it worked really well in Moana, so I'm not saying I hate it completely, but it took me out of it a lot because I lost the throughput of what was going on. Will, you mentioned that beginning number, the first 5 minutes, it's explaining who everyone is, but it also has so many things going on screen. I mean, Jim, I don't know about you, but like I got distracted trying to follow what was happening on screen while also listening to what was happening, while also losing the throughput thread of what was being sung because I can't understand what each individual person is necessarily singing. It just took me out of the movie right from the get-go. I think the story all taking place in the house is a little ridiculous for me. I feel faked out by the trailers that show you that she's like on some kind of epic journey with members of her family. Oh, nope. Wait, it's just it's just rooms in her house. I could see how that, could be a good thing. And I'm glad people enjoy that, but I expected like a girl finding herself and finding her worth movie, through adventure and adversity. And yes, we got that to some degree, but I don't know, the trailers just feel like a giant fucking fake out with this movie. So, it's a no on the music for me. It's a no on the story for me. I don't know that I agree with the central message of this movie being, it's not about your worth. Nobody fucking cared about her worth until after she had, restored the magic and brought everything back. And then Abuela's all crying and lovey with her. I don't know that necessarily tracks for me. So it was very muddy. And yeah, I mean, it was fine as Disney's movies go. If you want to take your kids to something or you enjoy musicals, I mean, there's lots worse movies you could see. But this one definitely didn't do it for me.
I might push back a little bit on the family didn't value her until after she fixed the house, because I think what ended up happening in this movie was after everything crumbled and fell apart, the family came together. First of all, through apologize, both the grandmother and Mirabelle apologized to each other. The house is a shambles when this happens, when they both realize like Mirabelle let herself get kind of outside of herself, and most importantly, the abuela had gripped so tightly to this like need of like, we have to do these things for the community, we have to do these things, that she didn't allow her own family to blossom. They have their apologies down sort of by the riverbed area. They come back to the house that's still broken, and the family comes together and says, we're going to rebuild this and we're going to do this thing. They've had their solve, and they're come to grips with Mirabelle before anything's worked. Then they sing a song about how you're more than just your gift. Like that's part of the song. And then they fix the house and everything comes back together.
Well, right.
But
that's my point in that it's not that everyone has come together and they've realized her worth and everything is amazing and wonderful. Because of that, it's the magic is back. She touches the door, and this time all the magic comes back. The house is re-enchanted, right? It's like all of the great stuff that I think we get out of that setup, which I agree is good, now becomes we're back to the status quo again. Like, imagine if they didn't get their gifts back. Imagine if they just became a regular family in a regular community, not having all these fantastical powers, but that was their worth, the people that they are. It just seems to take away from it to give them all their powers back and make their house magical and enchanted again.
That's fair.
There were some things going on that I was really into with this movie. The whole storyline about Bruno, I was totally into that. I'm like, oh, they've got this relative that they're not supposed to really talk about, and he's kind of kept hidden away, or he hides himself away, and it's kind of mysterious that he kind of disappeared or something. He went away somewhere, but he's living in the house. I thought that was a pretty cool concept, and I would have loved to have seen them do more, but that kind of thread of storyline kind of fizzled out a little bit, and then kind of swung back. swung back to the story that it was telling. But I thought there was going to be some kind of reveal there. You know what I mean? I guess maybe I was over expecting, and that's, I do that sometimes. But I think I was expecting a little bit more than just, like he was seen as, he even thought of himself as kind of like the crazy uncle or whatever. But I think it would have been cool. I don't know. I just thought there was a better way to kind of reincorporate him into the family that maybe that was a little more heartfelt there somewhere. But I didn't get that out of the movie, unfortunately.
What I liked about the Bruno character was I felt like he was the character that most understood what Mirabelle was going through, because so everyone else, like, we've got this family that has this sort of iron grip on it where everyone has their place, everyone has the thing that they have to do. That's the thing that their value isn't based on who they are, it's based on what they can provide. And Bruno's gift is not understood, and it's in fact it's actively misunderstood. And that puts him in a very similar position as Mirabelle, who is not understood in terms of what her place is in the family because she doesn't have that gift. I loved seeing, one, that connection between the two of them and how he did look out for her, despite them not knowing each other super well. And I also love the fact that there was a moment in there that I think was one of the stronger points in the movie too, just a little small moment where you see kind of like cut over and you see his little family plate like right next to the portrait. This isn't someone who wanted to be distant from his family. He wanted that closeness to his family, but he felt like he didn't deserve it. I thought that was incredibly like moving.
That is moving, and I wish that I just wish there was some more between him and the abuela or the family. Like, I've put myself out here because you guys didn't like me, or you thought I was crazy, and I felt away from the family. There was a moment there that I think they missed a little bit, at least for me. But again, he was probably my favorite character next to Maribel in the film. I think the abuela was an interesting character, right? Because she's the matriarch of the family. Mm-hmm. Does she remind me? Does she control who gets a gift and who doesn't get a gift? How is that determined? Is that even clear in the movie?
Yeah, it's not that she controls who gets the gift, it's her bloodline gets it. So anyone that, it's the candle is bequeathed to her. The candle is bequeathed to her, but it's her bloodline, so her kids and her grandkids. So it's not like the only way that she can choose who gets it is if she says like, hey, why don't you come over and marry my granddaughter, and the two of you have offspring and continue the family line. Kind of the same way, like, honestly, family lines tend to work, here, that, like you're more likely to pass down your honored heirlooms and stuff like that to those people who are like direct blood descendants than someone who maybe marries in. So I kind of saw it like that, so no, she's not like picking and choosing who and what and the where. It's more just like, this is sort of her bloodline, this gift that kind of goes through her and to all of her offspring.
But we talked about the voice work a little bit. I just want to give a shout out to John Leguizamo, who voiced Bruno in this movie. His voice is very distinctive, but I just, I love him in whatever he's in usually. And he was great as Bruno in this. I thought his voice work was great. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, this wasn't a bad movie experience for me. I think I might have over expected, and that's not a good thing, I guess, when it comes to some movies. Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe I need to listen to the soundtrack again through and see if something pops out at me. I just I wish something had stuck on me.
I mean, it's okay if the music doesn't grab you. Not every Disney musical film is going to be for every person, and that's completely okay. We have a comment in the live chat, by the way, Sean. Hey, Sean. He says, good evening, you lovely gentlemen. Happy to see y'all cute faces again. Aw. He says, Encanto reminded me of the film Coco. Jim, you mentioned the visuals earlier. Would you agree with that? Did it remind you of Coco at all?
I mean, the visuals, the color palette looks very similar, right? It has those like bright, those bright and warm colors, right? And the few times we went outside the house, the surrounds looked very similar. Both movies feature music, which is great. Um, I just I would say yes, this movie is reminiscent of Coco, and maybe these films make a good double bill. I would say. Um, I went back actually this week and I watched one of the scenes from Coco just to be reminded, because I hadn't revisited that movie probably since we first watched it several years ago. The scene with him and the guitar, and the
Oh,
TV,
yep.
like that was like film magic. And this movie, this one didn't have a moment like that for me. And again, maybe that's what I was expecting. But yeah, I would say yes, Sean, you're right. It is reminiscent of Coco, and Coco is a Disney Pixar film. This one is a Disney animation film, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's a
Although
difference.
the lines,
Yeah.
I think at a certain point, like, yeah, they're kind of sub studios, but I think there are films that are very Pixar, there are films that are very Disney, and then there's films that sort of blur the lines. And I think that there's like you mentioned like a movie marathon type thing. Like, I think that there's a certain DNA that, you mentioned Moana before, Coco and this movie all share. I think that would be a killer kind of movie trilogy, or not trilogy, but, 3 movie screenings. All of them feature young characters who are trying to find some part of themselves, who are looking to find something that they are missing through their connection to family and the way that they interact with the family. And all of them are kind of this new era of Disney films that are not about like whether the prince and the princess will get together at the end, where like romantic love isn't the soul for everything. It's familial love and self-love that are the most important part. So I think that, that comparison to Coco is a very apt one, just in terms of like where I think it fits on the shelf.
Yeah, or even Luca, another recent film that we saw. I mean, another coming of age movie where it doesn't focus on romantic love. That one in particular focuses on the power of friendship. And I thought that was a wonderful movie as well. But I just put this one a little bit lower than either Coco or Luca, actually. But that's where I go.
Yeah, totally fair.
Well, any final thoughts on Encanto before we wrap up for the week?
I would recommend, this one's going to hit, if the layering of the lyrics, like, that's the thing that happens, not just here, not just Lin-Manuel, but just like Broadway in general, you tend to have, especially like at act, like completions, you tend to have songs that sort of have that like layer as like different the musical beats come to a head. This is one that I think if that's something that you struggle with, and there's a lot of people do, and it's totally fine, watch it when it comes out on Disney Plus eventually, because you'll be able to see the captions too, and I think that might help with, because it'll have like some of that pop up something.
You might not be able to see what's going on the screen, but you'll be able to read the lyrics of the.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself wishing I had subtitles, and I wish my first experience with this movie would have been with subtitles, because maybe I would have gotten more out of it. But
The
I don't
message
know
of
that
the music. Yeah.
I don't really know that I will benefit from a rewatch, at this point. I mean, I figured things out on my own, outside of the songs, and, but yeah, maybe consider on your first watch turning those subtitles on, if that sounds like it's something that might be helpful for you.
I think there was a scene in this movie, or was it a song? I'm trying to remember, that was all in Spanish. Do you
Yes, there
remember that?
was.
I think it was was it a song, Will, or was it?
It was
It was a song.
Dos Oruguitas, 2 caterpillars, because the butterflies is a theme in this movie, and so it's sort of like the tale of the family kind of told through.
I was kind of surprised they didn't put subtitles in for that song in the movie. I mean, it was a pretty enough song. I just don't know if I got the most out of that song that I should have gotten out of that song without understanding
The words.
what was really going on, unless you're telling me that for some reason I missed it and it was all there on the screen. I didn't have to hear the lyrics. I don't know.
Yeah. It was more about creating sort of like the moodscape, like as they showed that sort of like montage of what had happened to sort of like catch up, and to tell the story of the family. I, like the actual lyrics are they don't tell the story, they set the tone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It was an interesting choice. I just did, I'm like, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what they were doing with that, but didn't quite, maybe it was a choice for a reason. I just don't know if I got the reason.
It was a choice. The quote for the poster.
It was a choice.
All right. Awesome. Well, definitely some great discussion. Thank you so much, Jim, Will. 2 movies worth of discussion. Always a good time hanging out with you guys and chatting about films. In case people want to get in touch with us between now and whatever we're doing for next time, Jim, where can people interact with you online?
You can find me on Twitter. That's where I do most of film talk. Hopefully not too much political talk, film, TV, that kind of stuff. Twitter at JJP Out West. That's my handle there. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Awesome. Will, how about you?
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Whatever Cove. It's right here on the screen. Find me on Facebook. My name is Will Lindis there. Search for Will Lindis on letterboxd.com. And if you're on TikTok, I do a bunch of thirst trap weird shit there. Just look for at the Movie Bear.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at iBradPro, or find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Chub Chaser Bear friends in common with you. Just send me a message first. Let me know you are from the show. Thanks so much to everybody who joined us on the show tonight. Xander was here. Xander, great to see you. Our friends at the Movie Mistrial, Sean, and everybody else. We appreciate you tuning in and being part of that discussion. If you are listening through the magic of digital tape delay and you want to leave a comment, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at MB Podcast. Let us know what you thought about Ghostbusters Afterlife or Encanto. We'd love to hear your thoughts too. Just because the show's over doesn't mean the discussion is. So please chime in. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.